All right. So this is the second stream. This is like a really fucking emotional conversation. This is like the last. This is the last fucking time. I don't want to fucking deal with technical issues during this conversation. I really don't. Um, I'm gonna wait and see if you guys actually have like. I just want someone to be here and tell me that the audio is working. That's all. Like, I'm sorry that this live streaming shit. I really thought that this would work out, but it's probably not going to work out in the long run. At least in this room. We just need like 2 people to tell me that the audio is working. So anyway, if you missed my last video, I'm just gonna give a quick. That's why I hate doing this sometimes. Quick recap. This is a very hard video for me to make. I'm going to talk about why I'm single. I'm going to talk about why I broke with my ex. Being a long, complicated conversation. It's not going to be fun for me, but I want to get it out of my system. Towards the end of the last video, before my video cut out, I was talking about how rape changed things for me and how I had become very used to abuse and how that was my normal. My normal was men not treating me with respect. And when I met my ex, he was the first man I had met that didn't do that to me. So, anyway, there's 4 people watching right now. Before I get into my fucking story, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me because I don't want to go to these emotional places and talk about this shit if it's not being recorded. There's 5 people in here right now. One of you guys can tell me if it's working or not. I can hear you. Thank you, Andy. We can hear you. Thank you. I can hear. Thank you. All right. So, rape changed shit for me. It really, really changed shit for me. I mean, when you're 16 years old, and especially when you're coming from the perspective that I was coming from, you really felt like when you had sex with someone, that was a precursor to a significant relationship. You really felt like that was something important. Now, when I was 16 years old, I lost my virginity to a man who had a fucking list of people he was trying to fuck. And he crossed my name off the list and moved on to the next person. That was how I lost my virginity. And I've never really looked at that as like a really bad negative experience in my life. I mean, it was shitty, okay, but I feel like I'm now kind of starting to understand that like my beginning, my baseline for understanding sex and intimacy was someone using me, was someone using my body as a trophy, as a token to conclude something about themselves, right? But when I actually experienced sexual violence, right, it changed sex for me in a very drastic way. It changed sex for me and it changed relationships with me in a way where I did not view them anymore as some sort of down payment on a long-term relationship. I'm not going to say that there were times where I felt that way, because especially there were, but I really start to view sex as a tool, right? So I would have sex or be sexual with men who could get me some sort of money. I would have sex or be sexual with men who could get me some sort of stability. I would have sex or be sexual with men who could actually offer me something substantial. And I'm not saying I was ever an escort, because that wasn't what it was, but what it was all too often was I was being sexual or having sex with men who I didn't really like, but felt they could give something to me. Because I was in a mindset back then where I was like, listen, my family's never gonna fucking support me. I'm never gonna be able to get a good job. I'm never gonna be able to make it through school. So I have this body which I can use to get something, and I'm gonna fucking use it. Right? And so then I went to college. Then I understood a little bit more about my gender. Right? And then my first sort of like foray into, you know, the sex party scene, so to speak, I was raped. I was dead asleep. I'd gone to this party that I didn't quite understand was a sex party. This is I believe I had just turned 18. I had just turned 18. And no, that's actually not true. No. Or is it? I don't know. A lot of these years for me are blurred because I've tried really hard not to think about them. I've tried really, really, really fucking hard not to think about them. Because they're very hard years for me. They're very hard years for me. And so if you ever hear me tell some of these stories and there's some sort of inconsistency, don't think that I'm like lying or that I'm just pulling this shit out of my ass. I really, truly, and honestly do not give a fuck about whether or not you believe me or side with me or agree. I don't care when it comes to this. I'm talking about this because I need to talk about it because it's cathartic for me. I'm not talking about this because I want you to necessarily believe everything I say. I could give no fucks if you actually do. I've already sort of accepted that, especially as a Black trans woman, people view me as unrapeable, unviolatable. And so it doesn't fucking matter what I've gone through. It doesn't fucking matter what I've experienced. Like, I'm built for this, and this is what I should just accept. So I'm just saying that maybe if you feel there's some sort of inconsistency, it's because I've tried really hard not to think about this shit. Okay? So anyway, my disclaimer's over. So I went to this party. I didn't quite understand it was a sex party. I've always been the kind of person who I try to make the best out of every situation. And so I was social. I met people. I said hi to people. I didn't have sex. I didn't do anything sexual. And my ride had to leave. So he left me there in this room full of men. And I thought it was a good idea for me to sleep. Fuck, the way I just said that right now tells you how I still feel about this shit. And so I thought it was a good idea for me to sleep. So I slept on the couch. Okay. And I woke up to a man on top of me, raping me. And I couldn't fucking move. I couldn't fucking move. It was like my mind was telling me to move, but I couldn't fucking move. I couldn't fucking move. And there are times where I look up and I still see his face. And I still remember how I felt in that moment. I couldn't move. I really couldn't fucking move. And he was whispering in my ear. He was like, that all the boys at school love doing this to you. And there was this weird moment where like I could see this like switch flick off in his mind where like suddenly he realized that like I really didn't fucking want this. That I really didn't fucking want that. And he got off of me. And I still remember the sound of his fucking keychain that we had tied to his fucking belt loop that was so fucking heavy. Like my body fucking froze. Okay? I was right under him. My arms were up like this. And I tried really hard to push myself up. But he didn't get up until he actually looked at me and realized that I didn't fucking want this. And then when he got up, I saw the owner of the party, the guy who was fucking running this shit, just watching as it was happening. And maybe because I didn't quite understand what happened, maybe because I didn't quite understand what was going on, I ended up getting into bed with him and falling asleep. Because in a weird fucked up way, the man who watched me get raped felt more comfortable for me than to be on that couch anymore where I could potentially get raped again. I look back at that and I think it doesn't make any fucking sense. But that's what happened. And so much of the shit that happened to me, I look back and I'm like, this makes no fucking sense. But it fucking happened. So anyway, sex, relationships, and intimacy after the two times I was raped, like it it really honestly became complicated for me. Because now I hadn't had a baseline of any sort of healthy, happy relationship with anyone, right? I had no baseline. All I knew was that men wanted to fuck me. That's all I fucking knew, is that men wanted to fuck me. And I also, especially back then, was hyper aware of the fact that as a trans person, no one would ever see me as worthy. No one would ever see me as worth it. And so, what can I offer a man? Can I offer a man all the trappings of things that he would want in a normal relationship, in quotations? No. I can offer him, however, some sex. I can offer him, however, some head. And so, all throughout fucking college, I went to these fucking parties and let men fucking use me. I'm not gonna get into the deepness of these experiences really, but I was in a situation where I was part of a scene where I was 18, 19, 20, 21, which made me younger than literally everyone in the fucking room. And I was presented to the front of the room for the men who wanted to pay to come into the fucking room. And I was a sales pitch for being able to get into the fucking party. That was my fucking experience with sex and intimacy, was feeling that I was only worth sex. That all I could offer to someone was sex. That my only usage in this world was sex. So I had a lot of sex. And then my junior year of college came around. My family had stopped supporting me. I had been transitioning. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I didn't know what the fuck to do. And so I had this person come up to me on fucking Facebook. They'd seen some photos that I had taken, and they're like, wow, you're really hot. We would love to have you come and work for us. And it was a very successful, very well known transgender porn um, company that had approached me and was like, we want to work with you. We want you to be, at the time, they had a strip club, they had porn that they did, and they also had the webcam stuff. Now, me being, fuck, at this, I think I was 19, 20 years old. I think I was 19. I was like, fuck, this webcam shit, let me, I can do that and maybe be um not well known and no one knows me or whatever. And so I did the webcam stuff, and that ruined any sort of like autonomy and happiness that I had with any sex I was having at the moment. Because at that particular space and time, I didn't fucking like myself very much. And all men wanted to see was everything I didn't want to show them. And so, and then at the time with the way that things were working, you would just get into these situations where, because it was a certain dollar amount per minute, men would watch you for 30 seconds, see absolutely everything. You get 14 cents. You get 14 cents. And so, even though it's not said explicitly, you start to get this impression and this feeling that, well, my body's only worth 14 cents. My body's only worth the 12 cents I just got for that half minute. And so that just bred more feelings of insecurity and unhappiness within me. So I did that for 3 months. I think I only made about $600, which now, given what I do today, is like, fuck, I made nothing. I did all this really uncomfortable shit for nothing. For nothing. When I filed my taxes, I had to tell my parents that it was modeling. They didn't fucking understand that because of their rejection, really, I had been doing all these things so I could make some fucking money to afford hormones just to fucking survive. So, my last year of college, I had finally been working towards stealth, and I was able to get a little bit of that. I'm not going to tell you guys the full story of that because it's really irrelevant. But long story short, when you're trying to be stealth, you start to really realize that you have to disassociate from certain things. You have to distance yourself from certain things. You have to not be the clocky girl. You have to not be the person who does this and does that. You have to be a very specific type of person. And for me, a lot of that meant denying any sort of previous trauma sexually, denying any sort of promiscuity, denying any sort of non vanilla part of who I was, and becoming this like perfect archetype of like this respectable woman who just graduated art school, who was working really hard, and this and that. This just ideal, this ideal, right? And so that's who I became. I became this vanilla cookie cutter person rather, who just had a lot going for them, was really smart, and really didn't associate with any of those slutty things other trans women did, right? Which meant that I was pretty popular, which meant that I had a lot of dates, which meant that there were a lot of men that were interested in dating me. And then I met my ex. And he was the first person who did not disrespect me. He was the first person who really loved me. But even when I just say that, when I say loved me, he didn't really love me. He loved what I was presenting to him at the time. He loved what I thought I wanted at the time. He loved who I was at the time. And I'll never forget, I was going through a lot of bullshit with some trans girls online. And one of the things that they had been doing was they had seen the ways that I changed. They'd seen the ways that I had kind of become this sort of like fake bullshit person. And they were like, well, we're going to tell your boyfriend that you used to do webcam shit. And I remember calling him on the phone and telling him how afraid I was of that. And him just hanging up the phone, because he was so disappointed that I was doing that. And what was so fucked up to me about that was like, I know that when I did that, I felt like I had no choice. I mean, of course, I really did ultimately, but I felt like I had no choice because I needed to make money. No one was hiring me. And I felt that my only tool in this world was my fucking body. And so I did what I had to do. I did what I had to do to survive. And this man that I met, who I love so much, hung the phone up on me. Because he didn't want to be associated with that. And I know that I would not have gotten there. All these things not happened to me. All this shit never happened to me. I know that I would have never gotten to that position or I could entertain something like that. But because I had been so fucking abused, because I had been so fucking used, it is what I genuinely believed I was all I could do. And I did it. And it was degrading. And it made me hate myself. But I made the money I needed to fucking make. I made the money I needed to fucking make. And I paid for my fucking books. And I paid for my fucking medicine. And I did what I had to fucking do. And I loved him so much. And he just hung the phone up on me. But keep in mind, this was me after college. I was on a different path. I've been working on getting into the animation industry. I had a degree. I had all this stuff going for me. And I was no longer the person I was back when I was doing webcamming. And so he called me back. He called me back and he said, you know what? I thought about it and I realized that you're so much more than that. And I can be with you because you're so much more than that. And what I didn't quite realize at the time, and what I realized, and what I wish I realized back then, was that positive or negative, positive or negative, this is part of who I am. And any man who I'm with needs to fucking accept that. Needs to fucking accept that. Because as much as I'm not necessarily proud of that, it is part of who I am. And so for him to have hung up the phone on me in that moment, that should have been the time where I was like, you know what? I can't do this with this person. Because at the end of the day, this is me. For better or for worse, this is me. And would I have been where I was at the time? Would I have gotten to that point without doing what I did? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And what I wish I had realized in that moment was that as much as I love that man, he didn't fully love me. He loved a very specific version of me. He loved where I was when he met me, but he did not love all of the various experiences that I had that led up to that point. He didn't love that. He didn't want to associate with that. And so that was the beginning of me realizing that I could not communicate with my partner about all of the various things that I have been into and that have happened to me. Right? So when me and my ex first got together, we were both in very similar situations. I was sleeping on my parents' couch. He was sleeping in an extra room in his parents' place. We were both out of college, and we both had a lot of dreams, you know? And we both had a lot of things we wanted to do. And when we met each other, it was like great because we wanted to encourage each other. We wanted to uplift each other. I remember our first date. We went to the Short Stop, which was one of my favorite bars in LA at the time. He didn't want to dance, but he danced for me. He danced with me and he tried. I still remember looking up at him as we were dancing and realizing that was the moment that I fell in love with him. Because he had got out of his comfort zone and done something that made me happy. To make me happy. No one has ever done anything like that for me, ever. No one has ever done that for me, ever. My experience with men is so dishonest. It's so painful. And here it was. With his little fucking urine on his face. I'm just trying. And fucking it had me from that moment. It had me from that moment. Because he did something that made him uncomfortable to make me happy. And so we and so, we started dating and it was great. We encouraged each other, we uplifted each other. I was like, we were on the same lane and level. I was working from home at the time. I had gone through my animation job. I was working from home doing children's illustration, and I could live basically anywhere, which excited him because he didn't like living in California. He always wanted to move to Portland because he went to school in Portland. And we talked for so long about going to Portland and taking a trip to Portland, going on an adventure to Portland. Because it was where he grew up. Well, not where he grew up, but where he matured as an adult. I'm so sorry. And so we already got this job. We already got this job working in this restaurant. He was working as a children illustrator for a really not children illustrator. That was me. I was working as a children illustrator. He was working as a driving instructor. And he hated it. He fucking hated it. He wanted to work in culinary. He got this job at this restaurant. I was so happy. I was so fucking happy for him. I was so happy for him. He had so many dreams, so many aspirations, and I wanted him to fucking succeed. And I really encouraged him. And he would come home every day from work and he was so happy. He would bring food from work. I would cook dinner for him. And we were so happy. We lived in a shitty little apartment, but we were so happy. I missed him every day. I wasn't looking at anyone else. We were so happy. We were so fucking happy. And then he lost a job. The owner of the restaurant decided to sell the business. And he had all this stuff building up to this point. But the owner of the business, he sold it out. And it just ruined him. It just ruined him completely. He was someone who was working towards a point. He was working towards a point. And when the owner of the restaurant decided to sell it out from under everything, he now suddenly had no fucking plan. And so he went back into working at the fucking driving instructing school. And he became more and more unhappy. He was ruined. He was devastated by the fact that that place closed down. And so he became more and more unhappy. And this is when he started diving deeper and deeper into the toys and the figurines and weed and stuff because he was working this job he fucking hated. But it made him, but he was able to spend money and that made him feel like he had power over it. Now I'm going to say this. One of the things that I didn't always understand early on is that a lot of the money that I thought was his money was really his parents' money. There are a lot of situations where, for example, there were a couple of months when we were living in Long Beach where he couldn't, where I couldn't pay rent. And so, the rent would get covered. And I would think, oh, he's covering it. He's spending his money to cover the rent. But really what it was his parents were covering rent. Right? So anyway, I start working on my own shit. We're living in Long Beach, and to be honest with you guys, it wasn't all I thought it was going to be. It was not all I thought it was going to be. I've never publicly told this story, but it's definitely one that was a pretty big trigger for me. So he was working his job he fucking hated. He was working at the fucking driving instructing school that he's been working at since his fucking high school. He does not like it. He got that job because of his dad. He does not fucking like it. He is fucking miserable. Okay? And so he dives deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into games, into vinyl, into comic books, which are all things that on their own I don't dislike. But he just dived deep into them. To the point where he was having what I felt were more significant relationships with people via Discord. He would be on Discord all the time. And he would always have like such a positive tone. He would be so fucking happy and so fucking content. And then I would walk up to him and it was like his whole fucking mood would change. Like it was like I was interrupting him. I thought when we moved in with each other, we'd been having sex every fucking day. We barely had sex. Every time I wanted to have sex with him, he always had kind of an excuse. When we first moved into the place, we were living in one room and there was someone right next to us, right? Someone directly next to us. He would always say, well, I feel really weird about this person living right next to us hearing us have sex. And I was like, okay, well, that's reasonable. Then that person moved out. We have both of the rooms, right? And I'm sitting over here. Now, mind you, partially because of the shit that happened to me, at this point, I have had a lot of sex. And what I wanted to do was have sex with the person that I fucking loved. Right? And so now we're in 2 rooms. And I'm sitting over here being like, we can have the sex, right? And he's like, well, there's this girl down the hall, and I don't feel comfortable with that, and da 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 da. And I'm like, all right, I guess we'll just have to have sex at a certain time, right? And now, mind you, back then my sleep schedule was absolute trash. My sleep schedule was absolute trash. And so I would stay up late working on this was the very beginnings of a lot of my YouTube shit that you guys know now. I was working on that stuff. I would be up till like 4 in the morning, and he would, get home at midnight and want to go to bed a couple hours after he got to work. And his whole thing was like, if we're not in bed at the same time, we're not going to have sex. And mind you, we're at this point, I think I was 22 and he was probably, I think he was 25. And I'm thinking we're going to be fucking all the time. We're going to be fucking all the time, But no. He was just so uncomfortable with it. And with him, I really enjoyed that he didn't see me as a sexual object. I really enjoyed that he didn't see me in that way because I was so used to men seeing me in that context. But I sat around wanting to have sex with the person that I loved, and he kept telling me no, 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 no. Right? So then one day, right? So because I'm a YouTuber, I get sent a lot of free shit from time to time. And so one day, I get sent a corset, right? And at this time, I had been collecting little sexy things here and there. I become kind of conservative in our relationship, so I was kind of like trying to, bring some fucking spice or whatever into our relationship. And so I had started, I started buying little like stockings and things, and little like thigh highs and things. And so I went and this was around the first time that I had ever braided my hair, right? So for those of you guys who follow me hardcore like that. I got this corset. I put the corset on. I got these little thigh highs. I got these sexy little panties. And I decided that what I would do is walk up to him while he was playing games and give him, a little bit of like a something something. And I thought in my mind, the way that this would go was I would walk up to him sexy as fuck in a way that I never had before. And he, while playing his video games, would have been like, wow, my girlfriend is so hot right now. I have to put my shit aside and I need to fuck her. So I walked up to him. And he was over here playing his game, looking up at the computer. And I'm over here giving you very much so, come over and fuck me right now. I want you to fuck me right now. And he kind of like glances over at me, sees how I'm dressed, gets the narrative of what I'm trying to put forward, and tells me to wait for him to finish what he's doing. So that, we could do the thing. And that was honestly one of the most devastating moments in my fucking life. One of the most devastating moments of my fucking life. And I'm trying not to be dramatic, but having really thought about this, like I've been through a lot of shit. I'm not trying to say this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. But like, I was over here begging him to fuck me. Begging him to fuck me. And he was like, well, let me finish what I'm doing here. And then, and you guys have to understand, you guys have got to understand, before I met him, now, I guess I should make this clear, because this is actually kind of important. Right before I met him, I finally started to get to that point where I liked myself a little bit, where I was going out a little bit, where I was socializing a bit, but I was going out very much with the mindset of, bitch, men fucking suck. I'm gonna use them for their fucking money. I'm gonna let them fucking pay for this and pay for that. I was very much a brat in that sort of mindset. I really felt entitled to shit. I really had a lot of fucking, like, men had treated me so fucking bad. I was like, fuck, I'm gonna fucking turn it around back on them. I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't even give a fuck about men. I'm never gonna find a relationship. I had a very pessimistic personality. And then I fucking met this handsome man who treated me the way that I never thought I would ever be treated. And I changed everything. But during that fucking phase, I had as much sex as I fucking wanted. I had as much sex as I fucking wanted. I never struggled to get someone who wanted to fuck me. I had as much sex as I ever fucking wanted. And so to be in a situation now where I'm in this relationship with someone who I fucking love, who treats sex with me like a fucking burden, who treated sex with me like it was a fucking, like, something that just, it was the worst thing ever. It really made me feel some type of way. It made me feel like I was forcing myself on him. And I just was not used to that at all. I really wasn't used to that. I was used to men fawning over me. I was used to men loving everything about me. I was used to men just being so enthralled with me. I was not used to men pushing me away and telling me to sit over there and telling me to sort of wait for it and telling me, I've never, ever experienced that. And so it flipped the switch in me because it made me kind of realize, well, maybe I'm just kinkier than my boyfriend. Maybe I just like things that my boyfriend really doesn't. And that this is really a part of my life. And I can't be in a situation where maybe I'm having to sort of beg him for shit that he just doesn't want to fucking do. He just doesn't want to fucking do. And so, and this is me being fucked up and wrong. And I'm gonna say this and I'm gonna admit this. So what fucking happened is I started, socializing with other people. I made an account on this fetish website and I started socializing with other people. And it was great for me at first because I was able to sort of talk about all the sex stuff that I could not talk to my boyfriend about. Because he was just someone who I could literally throw myself at him and he would. There were so many, listen, there were so many times. There were so many times where I would fucking be sexy as hell. Be sexy as hell. I would throw myself at him. I'm making you a mod, Mark. I'm making you a mod, Marco. I would throw myself at him and he would laugh at me. He would laugh at me. Like, that was incredibly hard for me. Where like, I'm sitting over here, I'm 22 years old, right? I'm 22 years old. Listen, I've had a lot of sex up to this point. I want to do the sex with you. I adored my boyfriend. I thought he was like one of the most attractive men that had ever existed. There were so many times where I would be naked, walking up to him, leaning over on him, sitting on his lap and shit, and he would just laugh at me and call me insatiable. And it really fucked with me. And it just made me feel like I can't talk about this shit with my boyfriend. And so I'm not saying that this is correct, and I'm not saying that this is right. I felt the need to sort of talk to other people about this shit, and so I started my own little fetish conversations online with people because I love my boyfriend and I did not want to break up with him, but I realized that maybe sex and kink and fetish were a part of my interest, were a part of like what I needed sexually to make myself a little more happy. And so I didn't do anything. I talked to people. Maybe I took photos of myself, and maybe I saw, but I needed that sort of space for me to explore myself. And this was really where I started to maybe realize that I wasn't monogamous in the way that I probably really should have been in this relationship. Because when I started this relationship, I was like, I want to be Miss Monogamo, Monogamy, Monogama. And towards the end, I was like, fuck, this isn't me at all. But I really, 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 really wanted to be that way, right? And so, fuck, to sort of really summarize shit, my ex didn't really get over losing that first job. My ex really did not, for a very long time, get over the restaurant closing down and him not having a place to work at anymore. So for a while, he worked at the driving instructing school, um, and he hated it. And while he did that, because like people who hate their jobs do, he spent a lot of money on comic books and toys and all these other things. And I love all of that stuff. I really, really do. Right. But it was this sort of coping mechanism for him. Right. And so as that was going on, my life changed. My YouTube channel became more successful. Right? I started getting more views. I started getting more subscribers. I went from having a very small YouTube channel. Like we first started dating, I think I had like 1,000 subscribers. Towards the end of our relationship, I had over 100,000. You know, and so I started from a position of, oh, I want to be this little animator girl, you know, and never be seen and never be heard, to, oh, Google gave me a call and they want me to go do a talk in Charleston. Oh, fuck. These hundreds of other schools gave me a talk and they want me to go do a talk there. And so my social circle, which was very small initially with just him and his friends and his family, became larger. And so I became more successful. I started making more money than him. And he always was like, oh, I'm very happy for you. And oh, I'm very supportive of you. And I'm very proud of you. But at the same time, it was like, I felt like he really wasn't. I felt like he wasn't really that excited and happy for me, you know? And so as I became more successful and as I started making more money, I started paying for stuff, right? I started paying for shit. Obviously, at a certain point, I had started to provide our rent. Now, for context, the first place we lived in, our rent for that room, I think, was like $200. Then when we got both rooms, our rent was $400. Then when we moved into the other room, we moved into the big back suite area, that was $800, right? And so our rent when we were living in Long Beach was really, really fucking inexpensive. Was really, really fucking inexpensive, right? And then we moved into um, my ex-boyfriend's cousin's boyfriend's place, where the rent was, I believe, 1,200 or something like that. Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just like 800 or 900. I don't remember, but it wasn't that much comparatively. And so, um, And so when we moved there, that's when shit really started to hit the fucking fan, because on one hand, it was great for me because I was able to sort of develop a new layer of my YouTube stuff. I could do a little bit more with my YouTube stuff. But at the other hand, it was living with his family. And so his discomfort that he had with having sex with me when strangers he didn't know were around was tenfold now because he lived with his cousin's boyfriend. And so sex was super fucking awkward for him, right? So anyway, it just got fucking worse, right? It just got fucking worse. And then without getting into the long story, some of you guys who've been following me for a while already know this story. Me and his cousin had an issue with each other. His cousin just fucking did so much shit, just did so much fucking shit, really crossed a lot of fucking lines. And when she eventually came over to confront me, to really come over and yell at me for some shit, which, in retrospect, maybe she should have. I don't know. Um, he didn't defend me. He did not defend me. I got out of bed and fought his family on my own. Fought his family on my own while he slept in the bed because he was just so much of in the position of like, well, my family's just, they're never going to get it. It's really not fucking worth it. I'm not going to fight, I'm not going to fight them because they're just, that was his mindset. That was his mindset. Or I was like, fuck, I'm having a fight with your family. I've been avoiding this. I've been avoiding this because I don't want to fucking fight with your family. And when the shit really hit the fan, he was never there to defend me. He was never there to fucking defend me. And so that made me really feel unsupported. And as you guys know, we eventually ended up getting evicted from that place because the girl that doesn't pay rent discovered that I was trans and started a lot of shit. And so then we had to move to City of Orange, you know? But the thing is, things were not okay. Things were not okay when we moved to City of Orange because I still had it stuck in my mind that he didn't fucking defend me. If your family is coming up and yelling at me, you need to come and yell at your family. I'm so fucking sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. You need to be the person who comes up and stands in front of your family and says, you're not going to fucking talk to my girlfriend like that. You're not going to fucking talk to my girlfriend like that. But he didn't do that. He stayed in bed. So we moved to City of Orange, which was amazing, which was great. I had more space to film. This is when my YouTube channel really started to change. This is also during the time when I really started to travel. This is also the time because I started making more money than him, I started paying for absolutely everything. Like when we moved to Orange, I became larger and greater. He became smaller and meeker. Because, when I started doing college talks, when I started making more money, right? He would always joke about how I was his sugar mama, right? And for him, that was a funny haha joke, right? But for me, it was like not very funny because at a certain point, I really was paying for everything. And so it really did kind of become this thing where every day I would come home and I would see him playing his video games and him reading his comics and he collecting. And I loved all of these things. I loved all of these things. I really, truly did. But I was over here stressed the fuck out, working, doing these jobs that stressed me the fuck out. And he was sitting over there kind of complaining that I didn't have enough time to spend with him. Now, you guys have to keep in mind, this is 4 or 5 years into our relationship, right? We're far beyond the point of us having sex the way that I thought we're going to be having sex. We're way beyond the point of us having or rather me expecting a degree of intimacy from him that I wasn't getting. Like, it was dead ass. Like, I was working my job, he was working his job. We had sex every other month, and that was that, you know? And so anyway, um, I start making all the money. I start paying for everything. And I was okay with doing that because at a certain point in our relationship, he paid for stuff, or at least I thought. I found out later it was his family. I found out later it was his family. What I did not understand about my ex, what I did not understand about my ex was that he had been so coddled by his mother, by his father, who are both great people. So if they ever see this video, please don't think I'm saying you're bad people. Listen, when I have kids, I'm gonna fucking spoil them. I don't care what the fuck their girlfriend says about it. I'm gonna fucking spoil them. But for him, he never truly knew what it was like to be self-sufficient. And I didn't know this until years into our relationship. My ex-boyfriend, he got into a car accident and got a new car the next couple of days. He got into 2 different car accidents. And in both situations, he was able to get a new car just like that. Just like that. And you know, and I didn't really realize for a while just how fucked up that kind of was, because he was never really able to even fend for himself. He was never even able to really fend for himself. And so he had no real understanding of the value of money. He had really no understanding of the value of money. And so a lot of stuff started making more sense to me towards the end of our relationship, right? He had been spending a lot of money throughout our relationship, and I was always wondering like how you could do that. And it's because his parents gave him money. He had bus voucher, like his mom, not bus vouchers, gas vouchers. His mom would buy him all these different bus vouchers. Bitch, there would be times where I would cook dinner for us, where I would cook full dinner for us. And he would come home with a big thing of ziti that his mom made. I've literally put aside the time and the energy to cook you a fucking home cooked meal from me, and you came home with your mama's cooking. And he's older than me. And a big issue that we had really was that my family does not and has not financially fucking supported me. I came up to my parents as trans and they were like, well, good luck with that. Good luck. I wish you the best. He's always had the support of his family. He's always had a place to fall. If shit hits the fan with me, I'm on the fucking streets. Shit hits the fan with him, he's got a fucking bed already made up for him. He's got a bed already made up for him. And so our view and our understanding of money was just so incredibly different. Was just so deeply, deeply, deeply different. And so time went on. I got more jobs. I became more sufficient. It became hard for me to not acknowledge the poly aspects of my personality, because what happened as I traveled is I end up being somebody who sits in hotel bars and socializes with people. And I'm talking to people, I'm talking to men his age. I'm talking to men his age, and they've got this, they've got that, they're doing this, they're doing that. And I'm thinking, well, fuck. I thought, because all I knew was my ex, that like all men were kind of where he was. And of course, that started me thinking about other people, which was fucked up, but it's what happened. And so, really, for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was Oh, wait, let me, before I say that. So here's what happened towards our last year of our relationship. Remember, I told you I had started this fetish page where I was talking about all my sexual things and did this and that? Well, he found it. My ex started snooping through my shit, which, you know what? Maybe he should have. Maybe he should have stopped snooping through my shit. I'm not really mad at him for doing that, honestly. And he found the page. And when he looked at it, he was terrified by it. He was terrified by it because it was like, oh, fuck, I can't do any of this, or I don't want to do any of this. And so now we were at an even weirder position where all of the things that I was trying not to tell him because I didn't want to tell him because I thought that they would hurt him, he now knows. He now knows. And for some of the stuff, he's like, well, yeah, well, maybe we can try that, or like, maybe we can see, or we can compromise. But for most of them, he kept telling me, you're being gluttonous. You're asking for too much. You're doing things that are too crazy. You know, you should just sort of accept. He used to always fucking tell me, you should accept that maybe you're not always going to be able to get what you want. Maybe you're not going to be able to get every single thing you ask for. You know, he would describe me as very gluttonous all the fucking time. And I'm sitting over here and like, I'm not gonna get into my kinks and shit, but bitch, it's really, my stuff is really not that scary. I have fairly vanilla kinks, right? And so it was kind of like, well, shit, like, so do I want to be with someone who looks at a list of my kinks and is like, oh yeah, no, that's an absolute no for me? Or do I want to be with someone who is like, yeah, you know what, I do want to fucking entertain that, right? And so that was another fucking thing in our relationship. It was just like, so, because a lot, without getting into too much detail, a lot of the shit that I'm into does in some way, shape, or form relate to a certain version of the trauma that I've experienced and being able to sort of claim that as my own and not be in a situation where I'm powerless, right? Without getting too deep into it. And he just looked at that and was like, whoa, that's really not something I'm into. And you're gluttonous for wanting it, you know? And so that fucked with me. That fucked with me a lot. That fucked with me a lot because, of course, I've been worried about him finding that stuff, and now he's found it. And now he knows. And it confirmed my fear. There's a difference between not telling your partner something and then telling your partner something and them saying no. When I made this fucking account and it had all this stuff on it and I never had any anticipation that he would ever see it, I could sort of say and do whatever the fuck I want and not really worry about answering to him. When he fucking sees it and he's like, abso-fucking-lutely no, it's like, where do we even fucking go from there? Where do we even fucking go from there? Right? So that was a big issue. And so then for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was I saw him on Twitter planning on getting a tattoo. And when you buy vinyl and when you buy comic books and when you buy weed, I know that those are like several small purchases that can slowly but surely add up in time, right? But I saw him on Twitter planning on getting a fucking tattoo that I know because he likes to get good tattoos, which thank God he did. I'm an artist. I probably wouldn't be able to sit with him. That's at least $700 down. And his portion of the rent was $755. Like, I know you. So I paid all of our rent for a year and a half, and he's on social media talking about getting a fucking tattoo, never discussing it with me, never going over it with me. And so I realized something. In that moment, I realized that he had gotten to the point where he knew he could purchase something that could have been put into rent, and he knew at the end of the day that I would pay for it. He knew that at the end of the day that I would pay for our rent and that he had a place to live because I got it. And I really thought to myself, do I want to be with somebody who cares about me so little, that cares about me so little that he wouldn't even think about how it's financially hurting me to pay all of our fucking rent? Now, I don't think he did this intentionally. I don't think that he set out to do this to hurt me. But I realized that he really had gotten to that point where he just didn't give a fuck. He was like, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna fucking do, and I'm gonna do it the way that I need to do it. And you can just, and if you don't fucking like it, if you're not fucking into it, that's that. So we're not having sex. I'm paying for all the bills, and you're buying all these things that you could really be, you could really have just saved on buying, so and you just give me your rent money, and that meant that you're not willing to grow. And like my big thing was, like listen. There were so many times when I was living in fucking Orange County where I got offered jobs, like good jobs, and I said no to those jobs because, well, I was living in Orange County and it was gonna be really hard for me to actually get up and go to LA every day. It was gonna be really, so I said no. I had sacrificed so much to live with him in Orange County, whereas he didn't really sacrifice too much. Maybe he had his little personal, family things, but he didn't really sacrifice too much. And so my thought process at a certain point was like, let's move to LA. Let's go do that. Let's go do it. But he just absolutely was not on the same page as me. He just absolutely was not on the same page as me. So now I live here alone. I mean, obviously, I broke up with him, so that's why. But I live here alone, and so I really felt like he was taking advantage of me. I really, really did. Because you know what, the sugar mama, the jokes about me paying for everything, like that's fucking cute as shit. If I'm not the one, you know, actually paying all your shit. Like if you're doing some stuff, okay, all right, all right, all right, okay. But I'm paying for everything and you're calling me a sugar mama. That's not funny or cute to me. It's just fucking not, you know? And so basically, I had to confront him and be like, look, I really fucking love you. And I will always fucking love you. You're an amazing person. And I have strong, strong feelings for you. But I feel like you're taking advantage of me. I feel like you're taking advantage of me. Because for me to be so fucking exhausted every day, to come home to somebody who is just, or not to come home, but to like roll over and look over at somebody who is just not quite there with you in terms of your work ethic, it's just really hard. It's just really, really hard. And so, anyway, that really is the big reason why I broke up with him, because I just realized we had very different visions of where we were supposed to be and what we were supposed to do. For me, I wanted a man who actually really was ready to, move to LA. He has now every reason to live back in the OC. He's just got every fucking excuse. Every fucking excuse. He's just got every single one. And so, I don't know. It's like there was a moment after we broke up that like I thought, well, because he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna live in my car," and I was like, "Well, that might be his bottom moment where he really starts to realize he has to actually work for his money. But of course, his parents came in and took care of him, and now he's still living with them, and he seems pretty fucking content. And that's that. Now, after this relationship, I still contacted him and I really fucking love him. And well, first of all, we stayed together. We lived together for months after we broke up. Months after we broke up. And that was so toxic. It was so toxic. But then when I eventually moved out, we stayed in touch. I tried really hard to sort of maintain some sort of relationship with him, but it was too hard for him. It was really way too hard for him. And so he always had a thing where he was always like, well, you're going to find someone, you're great, da 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 da. I'm never going to find someone. I'm just so ugly and so this and so that and so that and so this. So, it is what it is, da 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 da. He was very self-loathing. He did not like himself. He still does not like himself. Right. And so I'm always frustrated because I was like, listen, I'm spending time with you and I like you. So why do you think you don't like yourself? Right. But today I was at a bar. I was at my bar that I always go to, and the bartender and I were having conversations about, hair and stuff. And I told him that I used to have a mohawk and he wanted to see some old photos. And so I log into my old account and I find my photos or whatever. And then I go to my main page and I go to my notifications and I see that he's in a new relationship. And, it really invigorated some fucking hurtful feelings inside of me because I guess maybe there is a part of me that was like, oh, he's not going to move on. It's going to take him a really long time. He's going to, need to recover from this for years or whatever. But no, he's in a new relationship. And that's why I kind of made this video because fuck, like I've been really trying not to talk about this stuff, but it's been really hard for me to hold it in. And because I've been sending him messages, because my thing is this, we were together for 5 years. I still love him. I still fucking love him. And to this day, if he ever needed something, I would give it to him. Money, a place to stay, whatever, I would give it to him because I love him. I do. I still love him. I broke up with him because I needed to be happy. I needed to be able to pursue the shit that I'm pursuing. And I will say I'm a much happier, more realistic, more true version of myself today. I really, truly actually am. But yeah, seeing that, hurt me, even though the breakup was my decision. He got into a new relationship, And the thing is, honestly, like, I'm happy for him. I am happy for him. I want him to be happy. I want him to have all the fucking kids he wants to have. I want him because of course the woman is cis. Of course she's a cis girl. I want him to be happy. I don't want him to be miserable forever because of me. I don't want that for him. I really don't. But it was hard. It was hard for me to see. It was really hard for me to see. I started crying at the bar. I started crying at the bar because I was so fucking hurt. I was so fucking hurt, guys. Because I still love him. And I still want him to be happy. And there's a part of me that like is still like, well, maybe one day, we can come back together because we were together for so long and like I love him so fucking much. Like I love him so fucking much. But I wasn't happy and I had to be honest. Because one thing I realized, because one thing he kept saying to me was like, You keep expecting me to be someone else. And I realized that I had really been sort of sitting around and waiting for him to be a very different person than he probably actually truly really was. I was waiting for him to click with the culinary stuff and all that stuff, and I was really waiting around for him to realize that he was really great at what he did and that he could really pursue culinary if he put his fucking mind to it. You know what? I was really there, but maybe he's just not that person. Maybe that's just not who the fuck he is. You know what I mean? Maybe that's just not him. And is it fair for me to sit around and like expect him to one day be that person? Probably not. Probably not. And so, you know, us breaking up, I feel was a good decision for both of us, you know? Because you know what? Like I feel like because what I realized when he decided to that he was gonna get a tattoo instead of paying rent, I realized that I was a crutch for him. I realized that he was not allowed the space to grow because he knew I would always be there and I would always pay for everything, just like his mama did. I was a crutch. And I know that none of the things he did were intentional. I don't think that he did anything intentionally to hurt me, to make me feel a certain way. But it's how I feel, you know? And I can't sit here and try to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't understand that when I go out and make this money and I'm trying to support you, you know, you got to do something too, you know? And so I've been trying to talk to him. I've been trying to socialize with him. I've been trying to be his friend, but he hasn't really been responding. And I know that so much of that is it's hard to respond. I also now understand he's in a relationship. And so today I sent him a message and I was like, listen, I now really truly understand that these messages I'm sending you are inappropriate. You're in a relationship, you love someone new, you love someone different, and I'm truly happy for you. Like, I don't want him to have sat around all, you know, for the rest of his life miserable because of me. I don't want that. I don't want that for him. I want him to be happy. I want him to be content. I want him to have everything that he wants in this life. I mean, this was this was the man I thought I was gonna marry. This was the man who I thought I was gonna be with for the rest of my fucking life. Like I loved him. I loved the shit out of him. And I was not the best girlfriend. I wasn't honest with him. I felt at a certain point I really couldn't communicate with him. Like, that was a big thing. It's like I wanted to communicate with him so much, but it was like I could never communicate with him without it making him feel worse about himself. So being single now has been really rough for me because I really thought that like at this point in life with him that we would be engaged and like are waiting, getting married and shit. That's where I really felt we were going. But the truth of the matter is that we both had our own romanticized versions of the relationship that weren't true. We both had our own romanticized versions of the relationship that like it just wasn't true. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that we thought just was not true. It wasn't. It really wasn't. And so it's not, as much as I thought it would work out, it wasn't meant to. We grew to be two completely different people. I never got the opportunity to talk to him about polyamory. I really wanted to. I really, really wanted to. But I couldn't. We just never got there. And so much of the shit that I go through with men is exacerbated. And I've realized recently that like sometimes I put men through shit that they don't fucking deserve because sometimes I meet a guy who reminds me so much of my ex and I can't help but like feel really close and connected to him. And maybe I put him through this degree of unfair treatment that he does not deserve. You know? And so it's like objectively, I understand that this shit wasn't meant to work out. This shit wasn't meant to work out. It wasn't meant to be. But he's all I've ever known. And I still really wish, I still hunger for that degree of like, I still hunger for some degree of like stability. And that's so hard for me to get. I'm going to be a happy person. And I already know this about myself. I know that I'm going to get over it. I know that I'm going to get past it. I know. But right now, it's really hard. It's still really, really fucking hard. It's still really, 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 really fucking hard. Like, I would have liked to have believed that, like, if when I saw, like, oh fuck, this is just spilling everywhere. I would have liked to believe that when I saw that my ex was it was in a new relationship, that I would be like, oh, good for him, and it wouldn't have fucking bothered me. But bitch, it fucking ruined me. I was at the fucking bar just